Hi, this is Diana from Tune Inner Harmony, and thank you for joining me today. I recently read a book by Richard Rudd. It's on the gene keys, and the 22nd gene key really stood out for me and had a profound impact on my life. I wanted to share it with you all today. There's actually 64 gene keys in this book, but I'm sharing the 22nd gene key with you today. If you are interested in me introducing the other gene keys, just comment in the section below and I will add the other gene keys as well. If you're not familiar with what it is, I will read the contemplation section and then we'll move right on to the 22nd gene key. The Gene Key teachings are designed as an open system that you can explore in a wide variety of ways. Unlike many teachings, they are self teaching transmissions that awaken within you rather than a structure from the outside through a set of discipline or teacher. In this sense, the Gene Keys are an adventure that you can tailor to your own life, moving at your own pace and trusting in your intuition and imagination. Contemplation. The great potential of the Gene Keys as a teaching is to awaken a power, new creation, impulse inside of you. And as you follow the impulse, you begin to witness an emerge of your own genius. The central techniques that makes this possible is contemplation. Contemplation is something of a forgotten spiritual path. Unlike meditation, it does not completely bypass the mind. Rather, it uses the mind in a playful way to open new inner pathways inside the brain and body. It is through sustained, gentle contemplation that the gene keys can affect subtle changes in our biochemistry. The gene keys are designed to be contemplated and digested over time. Each gene key contains a unique message, and each message takes time to absorb before you feel the changes occur in your life. Contemplation is far more than simply thinking about something. It is a direct embedding of the universal truth at a physical, emotional, and mental level. Therefore, it is a good idea to begin your voyage into the gene keys with a sense of relaxation and patience. To enter the path of contemplation is to slow down inwardly in order to begin to see things around you much more clearly.
The 22nd Siddhi, Grace, the Seven Sacred Seals, and the Biological Apocalypse. In the sacred book of Revelation, St. John the Divine wrote down his famous description of the apocalypse, the so-called Judgment Day, where all world karma is finally redeemed and all human suffering brought to an end. Despite centuries of misunderstanding by religion, the revelation of St. John contains some of the greatest initiatic secrets ever written down. One of these secret teachings is known as the Seven Sacred Seals. In allegorical form, St. John describes the sequential process of the opening of each of the seven seals by an angel, and the subsequent unfolding of the seven stages of the apocalypse itself. It is not until the final seventh seal is opened that evil is conquered and humanity ascends to a higher plane. When we decipher this allegory, we can see that each of the seven seals and its accompanying angel represent an agent of grace, an involving spiritual force or siddhi descending from the higher vehicles and directly affecting human DNA. The apocalypse is really a biological phenomena, a judgment day within our genes as a new species of human prepares to be born. Within the matrix of the 64 gene keys, there are 6 gene keys that directly reflect this involving power of grace, the 7th being the 22nd Siddhi of grace itself. The 7 sacred seals and their respective siddhis. The first seal, Divine Will, 40th Siddhi. The second seal, Omniscience, 17th Siddhi. The third seal, Universal Love, 25th Siddhi. The fourth seal, Epiphany, 43rd Siddhi. The fifth seal, Forgiveness, 4th Siddhi. The sixth seal, Truth, 63rd Siddhi. The seventh seal, Grace, 22nd Siddhi. The 22nd Siddhi of Grace always works through the field of these 6 siddhis or divine attributes. Thus we can see that each of these sacred seals is a divine code sent down from higher consciousness to heal a specific aspect of the sacred wound. Just as there are 6 aspects to the sacred wound, so there are 6 divine aspects responsible for healing that wound. This process takes place both individually and collectively, and is described here. The opening of the first seal, Divine Will. The first seal is opened by the Siddhi of Divine Will, which heals human repression. Repression is the primary wound of humanity, since it refers to the very storage of karma in the DNA of the physical body. It is because of the layers and layers of karma in your DNA that the higher subtle bodies are obscured from your awareness. Karma is a deep physical tension expressed as fear, and it inhabits every cell of your body. Only through the grace of the 40th Siddhi can this karma be transmuted. The 40th Siddhi represents divine will, which is the only force powerful enough to transform all the layers of tension. Divine will actually means complete relaxation, so as this seal opens throughout humanity, the physical body finally comes into complete relaxation. As it relaxes progressively into deeper and deeper states, the higher subtle bodies can express themselves fully. In the end, your body becomes nothing more than a completely relaxed instrument of divine will. Because this seal has to do with releasing core tension from the physical body, at a collective level, it will eventually eradicate all disease from our planet. The opening of the second seal, Omniscience. The second seal is opened by the 17th Siddhi of Omniscience, and its target is the wound of denial. Denial is the external expression of fear as anger and aggression. If your core wound is denial, then you are unable to see and take responsibility for your own negative behavior. The more someone tries to show you your denial, the more powerful it becomes. Throughout humanity, this wound expresses itself through fundamentalism, violence, and sexuality. The only force that can break denial is omniscience, which is what occurs when, even if only for a split second, your vision is opened and your higher bodies literally look down into your mental and astral bodies. This notion of being seen through comes as a deep shock to the recipient, who usually experiences a complete and permanent rebirth after the event. Once you can see your own denial, it is no longer denial. It is through the opening of this second seal that certain people experience sudden conversions or higher callings. At the collective level, this seal will bring great healing to human sexuality and will eventually extinguish violence. The opening of the third seal, Universal Love. The third seal is opened through the 25th Siddhi of Universal Love. This is one of the most pervasive forms of divine grace, and as it reaches down into human beings, it triggers a huge wave of release that can spread from person to person like a positive virus. This seal heals the human wound of shame. Shame is brought about by a profound feeling of worthlessness. It is out of this feeling of deep shame that the whole world of hierarchy and competitiveness has come about. As the Siddhi of Universal Love descends into humanity, our urge to escape our own shame through selfishness and greed gives way to feelings of great joy and self-love. It is this self-love that leads to altruism and philanthropy rather than competition. Shame is obsessed with hiding, but universal love shows you that no matter where you hide, love is still there. It is through the opening of this third seal that you finally begin to enjoy life for what it is, rather than always chasing some ideal future. As humanity experiences this opening, it will lead to a complete breakthrough in the way we use money and a final ending to human greed. The opening of the fourth seal, Epiphany. The fourth seal is opened by the 43rd Siddhi of Epiphany, symbolized by the descent of the dove of peace. Epiphany heals the wound of rejection, the wound that keeps human beings from opening their hearts fully to one another. Epiphany is actually a shattering experience in which the higher three bodies, symbolized by the gifts of the three magi of the Christian Epiphany, explode through into the lower bodies, opening the heart from the inside. As this seal is opened, the many barriers that humans have erected will begin to fall away. Our countries, borders, armies, and all aspects that attempt to protect and defend us from each other. On an individual level, the fourth seal opens the potential for you to lead a truly romantic life, where you need hide nothing from anyone, and in which you wear your heart openly on your sleeve. Once human beings overcome the fear of external rejection, they become pure agents of grace through their friendliness, openness, and honesty. On a collective level, this seal opens the heart center in humanity and manifests as kindness. This siddhi will bring an end to world poverty. The opening of the fifth seal, Forgiveness. The fifth seal is opened through the fourth siddhi of forgiveness. As one of the great involving siddhis of grace, forgiveness has a special purpose: to work its way backwards into the collective DNA of humanity, releasing the many karmic blocks that plague the various gene pools. The fifth seal is specifically targeted to heal the patterns of unconscious guilt upon which karma is built. Guilt is a kind of karmic debt which exists between one person and another, or even between one race and another. As the power of forgiveness works its way into the human genome, so many ancestral curses will finally be lifted. This seal in particular has the capacity to create world peace, as individuals and whole nations forgive others the debts they are owed. The grace that comes with forgiveness has unprecedented power and brings a sense of true justice back to humanity. Forgiveness is a direct manifestation of the fifth body, the Buddhic body, which has the capacity to literally burn karma out of our DNA. At a collective level, the releasing of all this world karma will bring an end to war. The opening of the sixth seal, Truth. As the final stage in the sequence, the seventh is the glorious afterglow, the sixth seal delivers the coup de grace as it heals the ultimate human wound, that of separation. Because to most of us the higher realities of our true nature are obscured, we have essentially been separated from the divine for most of our lives. Because we feel this separation so keenly, we constantly seek fulfillment in the outer world. Ironically, it is this very seeking that keeps us from experiencing our true nature, which is to be found deep within our own suffering. The opening of the sixth seal is made possible through the 63rd Siddhi of Truth. Truth is something you become one with, rather than something you find out there. Through the opening of this seal, every individual will come to know their true nature as an aspect of one vast consciousness. Absolute truth is a collective phenomenon that will one day be fully embodied as the whole of humanity spontaneously recognizes itself as a single divine organism. Only then, at that marvelous moment, will all human seeking and striving come to an end. So it is that this 63rd Siddhi, through its direct realization and expansive embodiment, will bring a crushing end to the greatest of human curses, indifference. The opening of the seventh seal, grace. In the book of Revelations, the opening of the seven seals is surrounded by a layer upon layer of rich apocalyptic imagery. Unless you are well versed in alchemical symbolism, it will be very difficult for you to penetrate to the true meaning of this wonderful prophetic transmission. There is, moreover, a demarcation between the opening of the first 6 seals and the opening of the seventh seal. The seventh seal involves 7 angels and 7 trumpets, which sound the final judgment of humanity. The seventh seal is the spirit of grace itself, represented by the 22nd city, and grace descends only after great transmutation. It is like the rainbow that appears after the great storm, bringing complete transfiguration, the 47th city. On an individual level, the seventh seal represents the final absorption of all the previous 6 layers of the human aura into the monadic body, the primordial essence. At this level, even the flood of revelations and high frequencies of the atmic body must be surrendered into the void of what the mystics term the seventh heaven. We are told in the book of Genesis that God rested on the 7th day of creation, and this 7-fold pattern is reflected in many other cultural traditions. In the Hindu system, when the 7th chakra, known as the Sahasrara, blooms, the divine essence can finally reunite with the material plane. St. John describes this event as the coming of a new heaven and a new earth. As this 7th monadic plane absorbs the final vestiges of our separateness, each plane below and its frequencies disintegrate to be reintegrated as the true monadic essence. This is the meaning of the sounding of the 7 trumpets, which represent the 7 layers of frequencies of the human aura. At the collective level, the opening of the 7th seal refers to the coming of the final human epoch and the return of the human race to its original Edenic state. It is the great trumpet fanfare announcing the redemption of all beings. The meaning of spiritual initiation. The final aspect of the transmission through the 22nd gene key follows the story of the individual human soul itself. All human stories enact the same mythic process or storyline, albeit in infinite and uniquely diverse forms. As our incarnative process recycles into new and different forms, each activating different inferences of human DNA during each lifetime, our great transgenerational story deepens. Like all great drama, we are weaving a multi-dimensional tapestry of different colors, tones, and hues from the rich fabric of experience. Throughout every incarnative story, however, stands one immutable question that keeps us coming back: the question of our suffering. It is our changing relationship to this question that marks the various stages in our journey through time and space. There are 9 major landmarks along the way, and they are known as the 9 portals of planetary initiation. Spiritual initiation can mean many different things to people. The word initiation itself might conjure up all sorts of mystical rites you may have witnessed or heard of. Certainly in tribal societies, initiation is seen as a rite of passage, particularly for young men who must perform some kind of test at a certain threshold age before entering full manhood. Other ancient teachings and/or societies have systems of initiation that are performed as elaborate rituals at certain stages in an aspirant's life. In truth, however, spiritual initiation is a natural organic process that occurs to all human beings at a certain point in their lives. In essence, initiation refers to the naturally unfolding stages of all spiritual awakening. Initiation occurs to you no matter what you are doing in your life, and once it has begun in earnest, when you have passed through the first initiation, it is irreversible and inevitable. The 9 portals of planetary initiation. The 9 portals of planetary initiation are a synthesis of the initiation rites of many different cultures and lineages. Listed here are the 9 stages, followed by brief introductions to each. 1. Birth. 2. Baptism. 3. Confirmation. 4. Matrimony. 5. Annunciation. 6. Communion. 7. Ordination. 8. Sanctification. 9. Glorification. The first initiation. Birth. The first initiation marks the very beginning of your journey towards eventual transcendence and enlightenment. This initiation may pass with little or no recognition that anything has occurred within your consciousness. There comes a time in every soul's life when it has to move beyond its basic mammalian survival programming. The first stage of passing this threshold really concerns the development of the mental body. In your early evolution, you are simply overwhelmed by the desire nature of the astral body, and this remains the central focus of your whole being. First, it is interested in survival. Then, having mastered survival, it becomes interested only in pleasure. Lifetimes follow in which pleasure is pursued in any and every possible way. In one sense, the soul is trying to define what pleasure or happiness is and how it can be captured. Despite fleeting glimpses of happiness, the soul fails in finding true fulfillment through the outer senses and gradually turns its lens on the real prize, suffering itself. In looking into the nature of suffering, the mental body must first detach itself from the astral body, which means that for the first time the soul must consider its own nature. This turning inward marks a huge shift in focus in the life of the soul, because in looking at its own nature, it must also begin to consider the feelings and thoughts of others. In the deepest sense, the first initiation is a birth out of selfishness and into service in its broadest form. It is marked by the ability and willingness of an individual to accept responsibility for his or her actions. It is the birth of a true morality, not in the sense of adhering to an outer code or set of laws, but of the natural human spirit of helpfulness and harmlessness. After the first initiation, the soul becomes aware that greater pleasure is derived from giving than from taking, and this becomes the foundation of the higher life. In the world around us today, many people have passed through the first initiation. There is no set of beliefs or any common mission that unites these people, save that of wanting to leave the world a better place for future generations. They can be spiritual, atheistic, opinionated, even dogmatic, but they cannot be indifferent to their own or another's suffering, and this is what makes them so powerful and so precious. The second initiation is very different from the first. Whereas the first initiation is a general build-up of basic human goodness over a long period, the second initiation of baptism comes as a surprise. At the second initiation, the Spirit of Grace descends through the layers or bodies of form and bestows a moment of higher contact upon the recipient. Baptism is a sudden immersion in the higher frequencies of your own higher vehicles, and as such it always comes as something of a shock. As with all shock, it takes a long time to come to terms with what has happened to you. The duration of the experience varies greatly from person to person, and as the higher frequencies subside, the lower bodies are left with the task of recalibrating and readjusting to the influx of the new frequencies. During this period of readjustment, many things may take place within an individual. The existing mental framework tries to place the experience within its old paradigm or within a paradigm recognized by society. Many people experience the second initiation as a higher calling into one of the great religions. Others continue to grapple with the experience and may even go through a mental or nervous breakdown. Another common response is prolonged depression and a longing to return to the high frequency state. Still others may even go into denial and try to forget the experience altogether. Baptism as such can be extremely challenging, as it sets you apart from the rest of society in some way. It is, in a sense, a kind of purgatory, since you have tasted the higher life and can never entirely forget it. If you are able to handle the frequencies of the higher bodies and can incorporate the experience cleanly in your life, grace will periodically revisit you and baptize you in the higher frequencies of the causal body. The second initiation is an ongoing baptism in the higher reality, and the more readily the experience is digested, the more energy becomes available to you. We need to remember that the bodies above the causal body constitute your higher self. They know exactly how and when to allow the higher frequencies down into the lower vehicles. The period after the second initiation may also last many lifetimes, as the causal body gains a stronger foothold over the astral and mental bodies, the sexual and intellectual faculties. Baptism is thus an initiation into purification, in which your lower essences are gradually refined in order to be able to hold a more sustained higher vibration. The third initiation, confirmation. In some traditions, the third initiation is understood to be the first true initiation, because it is not until this confirmation arrives that a person becomes stable in their purpose of seeking the divine. Confirmation is another gift of grace that is given as a kind of reward to the recipient. It is evident from their names that these initiations are taken from the Christian tradition. Their mystery can be further understood through the original layout of the Christian church. The birth represents the entry into the church itself, the body of the higher presence. The baptism is always made at the font, which is usually located at the back of the church, between the entrance and the congregation, and represents the introduction of the child as a member of the church. During Christian confirmation, a young person is officially initiated as a member of the congregation, whose arena is the main body of the church itself. Confirmation gives the young church member their first taste of a much higher initiation, that of the Holy Communion. In the list of the 9 initiations, you can see that they are laid out in threes. This is one of the great mysteries of initiation, which is based upon final immersion into the Holy Trinity. At each of the 3 levels, the seeker enters into deeper communion with the triple nature of the Trinity. Thus, at the 3rd initiation, the seeker has a taste of the 6th initiation and very faintly detects the echo of the 9th initiation. So it is with each of the other levels. Confirmation is actually a fairly high vibratory initiation. It denotes having reached a stable frequency in which your commitment has been tested and found strong, and your lower nature has shown itself to be capable of some degree of sacrifice. At this level, the mystery of sacrifice is understood to be the deepest core of initiation itself. Here, at confirmation, you will grasp the certainty of your final goal, in which your lower nature will be sacrificed to your higher. After the 3rd initiation, it is no longer possible for you to leave the path of initiation, even though you will inevitably still stray from it at times. This is a level of frequency in which you become used to more regular periods of contact with the higher vehicles. The pathway between the causal body and the mental body is well trodden, which means that simply by heartfelt invocation you can now call upon grace. Portal 4, the fourth initiation, Matrimony. The fourth initiation represents the higher octave of the first initiation of birth. Matrimony is a birth into a higher dimension. It is a spontaneous inner commitment that greatly widens the pathways of awareness inside your being. The initiation of matrimony or marriage is your first step into the collective way of life. In the Christian mystical traditions, matrimony represents the marriage of the seeker to Christ, a very deep level of commitment that actually led to the beginning of the monastic tradition. The modern cultural institution of marriage still contains many of the secret initiatic rites that mark this high stage of consciousness. The primary symbol of matrimony is the wedding ring, the emblem of sacred union and divine perfection. The fourth initiation marks the beginning of the higher life in which your primary focus is to incarnate the causal body fully onto the physical plane. This means that your life's work is now offered in service of the whole, and there is no difference between your work and worship. The well-known wedding vow, "Until death us do part," now becomes your living reality, and your only true beloved is the higher self of your divine consciousness. Externally, this period of your life story is usually marked by deep service to humanity, in which you are much concerned with improving the welfare of those less fortunate than yourself. You may recall that the causal body is the body of our enduring virtue, being the sum total of all that is good about us. After the fourth initiation, our lower nature becomes increasingly more organized by the causal body. Our sexual energies in particular are channeled into creative work of a higher nature. Just as physical marriage precedes the raising of a physical family, so this higher marriage can lead to a vast surge in creativity that can involve and awaken many others. It is of interest to note that it is not just individuals who move through the great initiations, but also entire species. Humanity has in fact passed through the fourth initiation during the past few hundred years. Our matrimony has vastly improved the state of the world in which we live. The steady growth of global awareness is outstripping individual greed. Politically, the rise in democracy and social justice has changed the face of the planet. Gradually, human goodness is moving us forward, even though news headlines do not often reflect this truth. To understand initiation, you must read between the lines, and you must feel the truth with your heart as much as see it with your mind. As a species, we are closer than we have ever been to the ideal of working together collectively as a single unified organism. Matrimony has many hidden meanings. It can refer to the marriage of opposites, of East and West, science and religion, the masculine and the feminine. Inside your DNA, it speaks of a fusion, an intense period in which the many opposites within your being mystically come together into greater harmony than ever before. In the analogy of the church, it is when you are singled out within the congregation and approach the high altar together with your betrothed. It is represented in the sacred geometry of the church by the crossing and the great side windows of the nave, the open arms of the church lying between the congregation and the choir. It is a place of expansion where the body of the church opens out on both sides like two spreading wings. This is exactly what the fourth initiation denotes. a time in which you open your heart to the world and spread your wings to the winds of the Holy Spirit of grace. The fifth initiation, Annunciation. The fifth initiation flows naturally from the fourth, and at this level of expanded awareness, the initiations often follow each other in relatively quick succession, that is, within a single lifetime. Now that you are married to your higher consciousness, the next thing that happens is that you become pregnant. This is the Annunciation, the mystical announcement of the imminent birth of Christ. Much of the symbolism surrounding this fifth initiation is feminine in origin, flowing as it does from the third aspect of the sacred Trinity, the Holy Mother. On the lower planes, the feminine is expressed through the astral plane, the desire nature and the emotions. At a higher level, this plane relates to the fifth or Buddhic body. At the fifth initiation, the exquisite emanations and refined currents from the Buddhic body begin to penetrate the lower astral nature. This is a deeply tantric phenomenon in which you experience the sublimation of your sexuality into pure spiritual essence. The Annunciation is a chemical phenomenon that saturates your whole being. Just as a woman during pregnancy is flooded with hormones, so you become aware that your body is being purified and cleansed in preparation for a greater inner event, the birth of Christ consciousness. In the analogy of the Church, this initiation relates to the situation of the choir who preside over the altar and who represent the voice of pure worship of the Godhead. The connection between the throat center and the sexual center also becomes clear during this initiation. When a person spontaneously enters a higher ecstatic state that appears to be ongoing, it is a fair assumption that they are entering this fifth portal of the Annunciation. Many different mystical traditions speak of this magical time of higher pregnancy, in which the immortal fetus is gestating inside our solar plexus center. It is one of the great enduring mysteries of creation. In terms of the initiation of species, humanity stands at the threshold of the fifth initiation today. Even now, there are whispers in the air of a new form waiting to come into the world. Little do we realize that this form is gestating inside our very DNA. The timeline for a species to undergo any initiation is obviously very different from an individual, and for humanity it may take many hundreds of years for the Annunciation to become realized. We are about to enter a time of great purification, in which the feminine spirit of grace will be working actively in the world. The fact is that as a species we have already been fertilized and are in the very first stages of pregnancy. Just as the body of a woman takes several weeks and months to register the changes externally, humanity will not become generally aware of the great change that is upon it for some considerable time. Only those who are sensitive to the subtler currents moving beneath the world of matter will detect the first signs of the new human that has now begun its period of gestation. The sixth initiation, communion. The sixth initiation is the greatest experience a human being can have. It represents the zenith of our human development and the end of our evolution on the earth. The mystery of Holy Communion is the mystery of sacrifice. This is the full awakening of the Christ consciousness in a human vehicle, which requires the death of that which identifies with the principle of form itself. This stage is often referred to as enlightenment. The light referred to is the pure light of the sixth body, the atmic body, which is born from within the Buddhic body and enlightens the lower three bodies. As it does so, it causes the causal body to dissolve, thus severing the link or bridge between the lower and higher worlds. In mystical terms, this involves the dissolution of the soul, that aspect of human consciousness that is drawn again and again into incarnation. Thus it is said that at the point of enlightenment, the indwelling awareness can no longer take incarnation and forever escapes the wheel of samsara, or illusion. The initiation of communion also shares its name with the 45th Siddhi, which describes the great mystery of the taking of the sacred sacrament. The communion involves the direct imbibing of divine consciousness at the altar. In entering this field of frequency, you are transcending all sense of being separate from others. This is symbolized by the blood of Christ and marks the final breaking up of the karmic residues held in your DNA. For the grace of Christ to enter you, you must be willing to make the ultimate sacrifice, to give up your lower bodies and their desires, feelings, memories, dreams, and knowledge, and to be taken over by the greater being who has been waiting all along within you. To enter this great initiation is to die into the second aspect of the sacred Trinity, the Christ. The higher evolution and the 7th, 8th, and 9th initiations. The remaining 3 initiations are part of what is called the higher evolution, which lies beyond humanity and our human story. As such, they are difficult to describe in words, and certain binding oaths surround them in order to protect humans from their dangerous frequencies. These frequencies are no longer conveyable other than through sound or through direct transmission in silence. Even so, the higher evolution has always been known about, and fragments of truth concerning it can be found throughout human culture. In the Christian Church, the higher evolution is represented through the priesthood and its hierarchies. The 7th initiation of ordination has much to do with the notion of coordination, and these incarnations point humanity in specific new directions. It is through these beings that the higher secrets of initiation may be released. The presence of such beings in the world always precipitates a great shift in the consciousness of the whole planet. Interestingly, there are always 5 avatars present on the earth at any given moment. They form a unified force field that steers the balance of humanity towards evolution rather than destruction. The 8th initiation of sanctification is an extremely rare event on our planet. Initiations at this level are really beyond human understanding, as they have to do with the flow of essence from the 7th monadic body into the atmic and buddhic bodies. Although it does occasionally occur on an individual level with spectacular results, the 8th initiation is a collective initiation that can only be taken towards the end of humanity's evolution. The 9th and final initiation brings an end to the story of consciousness. On an individual level, the 9th initiation can only take place through silence. In certain esoteric traditions, it is also referred to as the refusal. After this initiation, the indwelling awareness refuses to materialize and dissolves back into the primordial essence from which it was born. Tradition tells us that only a very few great initiates have taken the 9th initiation to date. It is during this final initiation that the first body and the 7th body fuse together. The physical form then ascends and completes its final great destiny. The new heaven and the new earth. One can see from the depth of its transmission that the 22nd Siddhi is difficult to describe in words. The reason for this is that you need to experience it in order to know what it is. Although grace is a word that is often used in spiritual circles these days, it should not be used lightly. Rather, it needs to be treated with the utmost respect. We have learned that grace has to be earned through graciousness. This is the great message of the 22nd gene key. To find graciousness in the face of suffering, and perhaps even to find something more, holiness itself wearing a disguise. If the 22nd gene key happens to be an aspect of your hologenetic profile, then the theme of grace will be very strong in your life, and you must not turn your face away from the pain life offers you. We are all here to be tested over and over until we show that our faith in nature herself can never again be lost. Grace is a presence that descends on humanity, and like all the cities, it requires that we meet it halfway, which for us humans may seem a very long way. This is, after all, a perfected state in which everything about you and your life will be changed permanently. When true grace descends, it wipes out all your past karma in a flash. It also wipes out the karma of all your ancestors and all their ancestors. Grace softens your rough edges, puts a permanent end to your fear, and leaves you in no doubt whatsoever about your divinity. It also ensures that you never again forget. It is impossible to measure in words the sheer number of blessings that grace bestows when it alights on us. One who has been touched by grace is always touched by grace. If it happened to you 1 millennia ago in another universe or in another incarnation, it will never leave you. It will go on bathing you again and again. To be in the presence of someone manifesting this siddhi is to be entranced by the aura of love that surrounds them. It is something you can never forget, and it will stir your own soul to seek it until you find it. Grace is the very breath of the divine. It is always there, waiting for us high above, if we only persist in our sacrifices. Wherever there is oppression, there is the possibility of grace. If you can face oppression with a gracious spirit and a forgiving heart, grace will come to you sooner or later. Grace is a feminine spirit, and she cannot resist giving herself to those who smile in the face of adversity. As we saw with the 22nd shadow, there is no way you can hide in this universe. Everything is heard and recorded. Neither can you hide from grace. Grace is your true nature. It is your inheritance. It is the soul of the world. It is also a state that is beyond the laws of our world. If grace touches you, you no longer create karma. If grace touches you, you no longer have your own destiny, but become a musical instrument tuned and played by the gods. With grace, all human emotion is instantly transformed into love. It is not a state with which most human beings are very familiar. As a species, however, we are moving into a new epoch that will be marked by grace. As each of the 7 seals is opened, the world we have become used to will begin to drop away. In its place will rise, shining and resplendent as the summer sun, the new heaven and the new earth that St. John talked about in his great revelation. Now that you have imbibed this profound transmission that is the 22nd gene key, it is recommended that you give it some time to digest within the many layers of your being. As a feminine spirit, grace calls upon each of us to listen and receive her message and blessings. Above all, remember this: through grace, the universe has but a single wish, for you to remember that you are love and there is nothing in you but love.